Hi, this is Stephen Price with Carousel Industries, and I'm coming to you today to talk to you about cybersecurity and how to achieve an effective security solution that reduces your overall risk, is cost effective, easy to use, and reliable. So, to step back just a moment and let's review some of the risks these days that we have to contend with. Number one on the list, and I created a top five for us, is malware, ransomware, adware, the usual suspects. Number two is there's an increasing gap in visibility and coverage, meaning that people are bringing their own devices into our networks and into our organizations, and they're also working far more remotely and on differing devices pretty much anywhere in the world. So this creates a gap in us being able to see what is happening with our intellectual property and have coverage for that. The third thing is the increase in cloud applications and both sanctioned cloud applications and unsanctioned that are being accessed. And the fourth is simply this, that existing security applications can be difficult to manage, hard to use, could have multiple parts and interfaces for us to update and maintain. And number five is simply the things we're unaware of today, and also what's coming down the line. What is the risk for the future, and being prepared for those. So the goal here is to show you how to solve these issues now and make it scalable, work with your existing products, and stay up to date. So first, let's understand a little bit of what the hackers are like today. It's not like the old days where they used to sit behind a keyboard and simply look for vulnerabilities through our firewall or through ports that were open or devices that were available. It's not that simple anymore. In fact, a lot of the hackers these days work in groups. They will target our employees, research them through Facebook, through LinkedIn, and online social media. They can even mask themselves to get hired as a temporary worker, or as even an employee that's looking at leaving the organization could also be someone that could be a vulnerability or a threat. So attackers these days have their own servers or botnet servers that are planted out in the internet, and they use those for a lot of what we talked about in number one, malware and ransomware, as callback points for those files to call home and then execute additional instructions. For example, stealing your files or creating ransomware, things like that. So how do we negate this, and how do we neutralize it? So the first step in this process is the centralized part. What Cisco does is with Talos, and what Talos is it searches out these servers that in real time to see if they are safe, or if they are unknown, or if they are malicious. And with all that intel that they're gathering from all the Cisco devices on the network, plus the database itself, is the intel has over 250 researchers that are fighting back against this type of intrusion. So that is the central core of where all that data, analytics, and all go back to, so that it creates that security now, but also in the future. So if you have a day zero attack, you're going to be able to mitigate that based upon being tied to Cisco Talos. So let's talk a little bit about, what are the intrusion points that people try to get into. The first one is email. So, as we talked about before, you could send a phishing email, malware, adware. An easiest way to try to get in touch with somebody is through that, or even through their personal email. Like I said, they try to fish out as much as they can from social media, find your personal email addresses, and try to get in that way. So the email and then Umbrella will block all these files that are malicious at a DNS level. So if it's malicious and it's identified by Talos, it won't even get through to the email. The next stage of this is web security, and what that will do is basically block any call outs, or even if somebody's going to a website that's not known as secure or on the positive list of, block HTTP, HTTPS websites and web addresses. So these seem simple enough, and this is where a lot of the security will stop, is thinking that we're secure in that way. But attackers don't stop there. They just keep going, and they're going to continue to attack. So what they'll look for, and they may even create a file or a download that's innocuous from the point of view of the person or even from the network, but it will look for vulnerabilities in ports. So for example, it'll look for ports that are open that aren't normally open. It'll look for ways to get in that way through the firewall. But with firepower and the next generation firewall at the enterprise, and also with the Meraki at the branches, this is going to stop that attack, and it's going to look at the applications and look at what they're reaching out to and prevent them from actually being successful. And then in the data center side of it, it's the next generation intrusion prevention system that is employed in that area as well, to prevent the further spread of that from all of our cloud computing and our servers. So with those pieces in place, so where do they go next? They're going to go, the attackers, they're going to want to install malicious files and keyloggers, and this is where AMP for endpoints comes in. So, for example, you could be watching a football game, and at that, on the Sunday afternoon, you download some personal email, or maybe your daughter downloads an email, and it ends up with malware or something like that on, or a keylogger that you weren't aware of. Well, AMP for endpoints will catch that on that device, no matter how it gets into the device, and it'll block it. And what that will do is it will contain it, and then if it's an unknown file and it's analyzed by threat grid and it's found to be unsafe, it will trigger a retroactive security alert, and it will actually go back and search through not only this device but other devices on the network to make sure that that file doesn't exist elsewhere. So the attacks use command and callbacks most commonly, and it can be simple, it can be more complex, and that's where Cisco Umbrella comes in to block that using DNS. So by pointing your devices to the DNS, it doesn't matter whether they're on the VPN or not. What will happen is they could be on their phone, they could be on their PC, their laptop, even at home, and as long as the DNS is pointing to the Cisco Umbrella, it's going to evaluate all that traffic, all those pieces, and make sure that that information is secure. And this is whether they're on, the VPN network or not, even when it's off. So they, like I said before, will keep persisting until successful. So the next layer of defense here is Cisco's ICE, or the Identity Services Engine. And what this will do is limit access by who, what, when, where of people and devices, and determine, are they who they say they are they doing what they're supposed to be doing, and where are they, and make sure that those people are trusted to be doing what they're doing on the network or off with your intellectual property. And then TrustSec will actually enable you to set up devices and policies, and also separate kind of like a virtual VLAN, or separate the traffic out in the users, so that they don't have access to sensitive information or sensitive data that they shouldn't. So Stealth Watch in this regard will establish a baseline, and it will detect anomalies in historical real-time net flow data. So if there's an awful lot of data that's being consumed, it will actually take a look at that so that it can be evaluated. And then lastly here is Cloud Lock, and what that will do is it blocks the misuse of logins and credentials. So all of these products have one really powerful thing in common, is that they are effective, they're automated, they're simple, and they all communicate with each other on the network. So the events, the policies, the intel is shared in near real time through all of the devices with Talos. Talos will give updates to all users on all these platforms. In addition to that, the APIs will allow the these devices to communicate with other products that you may have on the network for security, with events, policies, and threat intelligence, and also context as well. So as you can see, I think what this will do for you is make it easy to use, reliable, and mitigate your risk overall, and also reduce the amount of time that you're having to spend to manage those risks. So I'm looking forward to implementing these Cisco components into your network, and we will work towards that goal in our next meeting. Thank you for your time.